Section A, 25 marks. Question 1. Give 2 economic reasons why the Kushites migrated from their original homeland in Kenya. Search for pasture. Search for land for agriculture. 2. What religious functions did the Okoyot of the Nandi perform during the pre-colonial period? 1. He was consulted on issues relating to rains. 2. He advised the community on suitable war strategies. 3. He was consulted on when to hold circumcision ceremonies. Question 3. Identify 2 religious practices of the Abagusi during the pre-colonial period. They believed in the supreme god, that is Nkoro. They practiced ancestral worship. They used diviners to interpret messages from God. Question 4. Give 2 reasons why some sections of the Akamba collaborated with the British. 1. Superior British military power and organization overwhelmed them. 2. The Akamba were frightened by the brutal British repression over the resisting warriors. 5. Identify 2 ways in which colonial land policies promoted settler agriculture. 1. Europeans were given large tracts of land for agriculture. 2. They were assured of African labor on their lands. 6. Give 2 contributions of the independent schools in Kenya during the colonial periods. 1. Complemented the government in the provision of education to the Africans. 2. Were breeding grounds for future nationalists. 7. Identify 2 factors that strengthened African nationalism in Kenya during the colonial period. 1. International opinion was opposed to colonialism. The UN Charter supported self-determination and the independence of all nations. 2. The African participation in World War I and 2. Gave the African confidence to face the colonialists. In Kenya, the ex-servicemen were in the forefront in the nationalist struggle after 1945. 3. The British Labour Party was opposed to colonialism. 4. The public opinion in Britain was opposed to imperialism. 8. Give 2 basic objectives of African socialism: political equality, social justice, human dignity, equal opportunities, freedom from want, disease and exploitation, high and growing per capita income, equitability and distributed. Question 9. Define the term conflict. A conflict is a serious disagreement between individuals or states which can result to violence. 10. State principles of democracy. 1. Citizen participation in government through voting. 2. Regular, free and fair elections. 3. Multipartyism, that is the existence of many political parties. 4. Transparency and accountability, that is the government keeps people informed about new developments. 5. Equality of all people before the law. 6. Economic freedom for all. 7. Rule of law. 8. Human rights protection. 9. Ombudsperson defends, protects the public from abuse by the executive. Question 11. Give 2 functions of the sergeant at arms in Kenya's parliament. 1. To enforce the orders of the National Assembly. 2. To execute warrants issued by the Speaker. Question 12. Identify 2 events of 1990 which nearly plunged the countries into crisis. 1. The assassination of Dr. Robert Ouko, Kenya's Minister for the Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in February 1990. 2. In July, multipartyism agitators organized the Sabasaba riots to pressurize for the introduction of multi-party democracy. Question 13. State the main challenge facing the Nairobi City Council to date. Increase in human population. Question 14. What is contained in the national budget? 1. The amount of revenue expected. 2. Methods of raising revenue, for example, tax structure. 3. Government expenditure. Section B, 45 marks. 15A. State 5 factors that led to the migration and settlement of the Bantu into Kenya before 1800 AD. 1. Pollution increase arising from sufficiency in food production forced the Bantu to migrate. 2. Their knowledge of iron working enabled them to make better weapons and farming tools. They were used to fight communities they came into contact with in the course of their migration. They were also used to clear new lands for agriculture. 3. Internal conflicts arising from population pressure led to migration. 4. Natural calamities such as drought, famine and diseases caused migration. 5. External attacks by hostile neighbors forced the Bantu to migrate. 6. The Bantu are also searching for land, both for agriculture as well as for grazing. 7. Those who loved agriculture migrated to distant lands. Question 15b. Describe the political organization of the Agikuyu in the pre-colonial period. The smallest political unit was the family, headed by the father. 2. Several families made up a lineage, that is Mbari, which in most cases occupied one territorial unit, for example, a ridge. 3. A number of lineages made up a clan. 4. The clan was the highest political unit and was headed by a council of elders known as the Kiama, whose chairman was the Muthamaki and the Moramati, a caretaker. 5. The Muthamaki was chosen due to the wisdom and the leadership qualities and was highly respected. 6. The Council of Elders maintained law and order. 7. There were also Council of Senior Elders, Kiamaki and Dondo. Members were chosen from the Council of Elders. 8. The Council of Senior Elders was the highest court of appeal. It settled land and inheritance disputes as well as civil and criminal cases. 9. The council also presided over religious functions. 16a. Name 3 prominent African nationalists who were arrested by the colonial authorities in Kenya in October 20, 1952. Jomo Kenyatta, Paul Ngei, Achieng' Oneko, Fred Kubai, Bildad Kagia, Kungu Karuba. Question 16b. Discuss the grievances of the Africans against the colonial administration in Kenya. 1. They were unhappy about their loss of independence. 2. They detested racial discrimination in social places. 3. They were opposed to forced labor. 4. They were opposed to taxation in a situation where the taxes were not used for their benefit. 5. Africans were opposed to land alienation in the creation of reserves for their occupation. 6. African nationalists were opposed to the restrictions on the formation and activities of African political parties. 7. They were opposed to the provision of substandard or other low-quality education and health services. Question 17a. State 3 settler grievances against the British government by 1922. 1. The sudden recall of Sir Edward Northey, government of Kenya in 1922, angered the settlers because he favored them as opposed to the Africans and Asians. 2. The decision by the British government that there should be on racial segregation in Kenya, except in the highlands. 3. The 1922 British government's decision to allow Asians to elect 4 members to the LegCo. The settlers were furious and decided to have dialogue with the British colonial secretary, the Duke of Devonshire. Question 17b. What were the results of the Devonshire White Paper of 1923 for Kenya? 1. It saved Kenya from minority rule, as was the case in such African countries as South Africa and Zimbabwe. 2. Through the theory European demands for the self-government were rejected, it still upheld the paternity of the settlers more than that of the Africans. For example, residential segregation in towns, theaters, clubs, trains, etc. continued without reference to paper. For example, there continued to be a separate housing for different races in towns. By allowing the settlers the use of the Kenyan highlands, the said settlers continued to dominate the economy of Kenya. 3. The settlers were extremely disappointed and some of their leaders, for example Lord Delamere, began to seek assistance from Rhodesia and South Africa to enable them to establish their control. 4. The paper did not satisfy the Asians since they did not gain access to the highlands nor achieve political equality with the Europeans. 5. The Asians, through the Indian Congress, declined to hold elections for the Legislative Council seats offered until 1933. 6. Africans' interests were, for the first time, represented in the LegCo by the white missionary. 7. Local native councils were established for the Africans. 18a. State 3 functions of the Governor General of Kenya in 1964. Head of State, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, in charge of foreign affairs, representative of the British monarch, that is the Queen, in charge of defense matters. Question 18b. Discuss the political developments and challenges that Kenya has undergone since independence in 1963. 1. In 1964, the two opposition parties, that is KADU and APP, crossed the floor and joined KANU. 2. In 1964, the federal constitution, that is the Majimbo constitution, was replaced by a unitary or republican constitution. This gave the president more powers. 3. On April 14th, 1966, Oginga Odinga resigned from KANU and formed a new party, the Kenya People's Union, that is KPU. He was joined by about 30 members of parliament who included Acheng Oneko, Bildad Kagia, and Tom Okello Odogo. 4. On April 29, 1966, a new bill was introduced in Parliament which stated that an MP who resigns from a political party that sponsored him or her to Parliament must seek free mandate from the electorate. 5. In the same year, the Senate and the House of Representatives were disbanded and a single chamber parliament was established. 6. In July 5th, 1969, Tom Mboya, Minister for Economic Planning and Development, was assassinated. This was followed by anti-government riots. One such riot, which coincided with Kenyatta's visit to Kisumu, led to the banning of the KPU. This went on to turn Kenya from a de jure multi-party state to a de facto one-party state. 7. In March 1975, Josiah Mwangi Kariuki, the MP for Nyandarua North, was assassinated. Many public personalities were implicated in his assassination. The assassination caused anxiety and threatened the stability of the government for some time. 8. In 1976, an attempt by some members of parliament to have the constitution changed to prevent the vice president from assuming power in the event of the post becoming vacant was unsuccessful. This included Kihika Kimani, Dr. Njoroge Mungai, Jackson Again, and Jega Karume. 9. Kenyatta's death on 22nd August 1978 was a test for Kenya's political maturity. The constitution was strictly followed in the ensuing succession. 10. In 1979, in bid to cement national unity, all tribal organizations as well as names of football clubs were banned. 11. In 1982, George Anyona announced his intentions of forming an opposition party. The then Attorney General Charles Njonjo swiftly tabled a motion in Parliament. He was seconded by Mwai Kibaki, the then Vice President, which made Kenya's a de jure one-party state. 12. On 22nd August 1982, there was an attempted coup d'etat by some Air Force members. Some of them were arrested, interrogated, and imprisoned. 13. In 1983, a commission of inquiry was set up by the president to investigate a plot in which Charles Njonjo, in collaboration with foreign powers, wanted to seize power. The commission was chaired by the late Justice Cecil Miller. Though found guilty of charges, he was pardoned by the president. 14. The mysterious murder of Robert Ouko, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, in February 1990 caused anxiety among Kenyans. In 1991, multipartyism was reintroduced. 16. On December 29, 1992, the first multiparty general elections were held and KANU won. President Moi retained his portfolio. 17. President Moi again led KANU to win the second multi-party general elections held on December 29, 1997. 18. Following the retirement of President Daniel Arap Moi and the general elections of December 29, 2002, Nax Moi Kibaki was successful and became president. 19. A referendum of the new draft constitution of Kenya, popularly known as the Wako draft, was held on November 21, 2005. The government campaigned for it. Some cabinet ministers and KANU, the official opposition party, opposed it. The document was rejected finally. 20. A few days after November 21, 2005, President Kibaki sacked the entire cabinet, excluding the vice president, and 2 suspended parliament. 21. The newly reconstructed cabinet was appointed early in December 2005. Was almost identical to the one earlier sacked. It was, moreover, the largest in Kenya's post-independence period. Some ministers and assistant ministers also rejected cabinet appointments. 22. Allegations were made in January 2006 that the government was involved in a corruption scandal known as Anglo leasing. Section C, 30 marks. 19A. Discuss the importance of the law in society to provide guidance on the expected behavior of the citizens, to provide security to the citizens, to establish and maintain order in the country, to protect individual citizens from the violation of their rights by others. 19B. Discuss the elements of a good citizen in Kenya. 1. Obedience to the laws of the country. A good citizen should obey the laws of the country to ease the work of the police in the maintenance of law and order and promote harmony in the society. 2. Every Kenyan citizen should be loyal to the leadership of the country. They should be ready to defend the country in case of external aggression. 3. Participation in development activities. A good citizen is expected to contribute their money, time and energy to foster the development of the country for the common good of the people. 4. Participation in the democratic process of the country, for example, voting, being voted. A good citizen should participate in establishing good governance in the country through the vote. 5. Reporting lawbreakers. A good citizen should assist the police to root out crime. 6. Gender sensitivity. 7. A good citizen should not discriminate against other members of the society. 8. Participation in environmental conservation efforts. 9. Practicing good health habits that will not endanger the lives of others. 10. Promoting the rule of law. 11. Promoting high moral behavior. 20A. State 5 circumstances that may lead to limitation of the freedom of speech and expression in Kenya. 1. If the freedom is used to defame others. 2. If it is used to give classified information concerning the government. 3. If used to incite people against the government. 4. If used to spread malicious rumors about others. 5. If used to spread falsehoods. 20B. Discuss the rights of a suspect in Kenya. Right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Every suspect must be given the benefit of a doubt. They must be therefore taken to court for their case to be determined by the qualified advocate of the law. 2. Right to fair trial in court of law. The officers of the court must hear the case brought before them and determine the outcome on the basis of the law. 3. Right to representation in court by a law officer. Suspects are allowed to hire the services of a legal officer. If they cannot afford, then the state should give or provide one. 4. The right to a public trial unless the case involves classified information that may be dangerous to the security of the nation. 5. Right to be taken or charged in a court of law 48 hours after arrest, except in serious cases that require more time for investigations, for example, treason, murder, robbery with violence. 6. Right to be informed about the charges referred against them at the point of arrest. 21A. Identify 3 types of local authorities in Kenya: city councils, urban councils, municipal councils, town councils, county councils, and area councils. Question 21B. Explain the functions of local authorities in Kenya. 1. Local authorities construct and maintain transport networks in the areas of jurisdiction, for example, roads. 2. They provide social services to the people in the area of jurisdiction, for example, schools and healthcare. 3. Local authorities provide recreational facilities in their designated areas, for example, social halls, sporting grounds, and stadiums. 4. They facilitate business transactions between people by providing markets. 5. Local authorities issue trade licenses to the people. This facilitates business transactions between people. 6. They offer employment opportunities to the people, for example, clerks, doctors, nurses, teachers, and others. 7. They provide water and sewage services to the residents. 8. They provide housing and approve housing plans to public and private developers within the areas of jurisdiction. 9. They formulate bylaws to regulate activities in the areas. 10. They maintain law and order through the use of counsel, that is C.R.E, who arrest those who violate bylaws and charge them in court. 11. They also provide lighting, that is street lighting, to enhance security, especially in towns. 12. They enhance cleanliness in their localities. 13. They provide cemeteries and bury unclaimed bodies. Did you understand? Kindly let me know in the comment section below and what video I can look at tomorrow. Thanks a lot for subscribing and listening to me. God bless you.